population will have different amounts of alleles for each gene. The allele frequency is how often an allele occurs in a gene pool. We can express allele frequency as a percentage or as a decimal. You can calculate the allele frequency in a population by taking the number of one type of allele and dividing by the total number of alleles. This is the simplest way to calculate allele frequency. Now, in this population, there are 7 fish, each with 2 alleles, so there are 14 alleles in total. When I count up the number of dominant alleles, there are 6. So, 6 divided by 14 is 0.429, or 42.9%. Then I can count up the number of recessive alleles and divide that by 14 to get 0.571, or 57.1%. Now, both percentages add up to 100, so we know we've done this correctly. The recessive allele is more frequent in this population, but let's try another problem. Suppose a population has 10 individuals and there are 2 alleles of a gene. Suppose the individuals are as follows: 4 homozygous dominant, 4 heterozygous, and 2 homozygous recessive. What is the frequency of the big A and of the little a? We have 10 individuals, which means there are 20 total alleles. There are 8 alleles from the homozygous dominant and 4 from the heterozygous, which makes 12. So we'll need to divide that number by 20, and we get 0.6. At this point, you could just subtract 0.6 from 1 to get the frequency of the recessive allele, or you could do the same calculation as the first part. 4 recessive alleles from the heterozygotes and 4 from the homozygous recessives gives us 8 out of 12, which is 0.4. So the dominant allele in this case is more frequent in this population. 2 scientists, Hardy and Weinberg, independently came up with a way to calculate allele frequencies and said that allele frequencies will remain constant unless acted upon by some outside forces. These outside forces would cause changes in the allele frequencies and thereby cause evolution. There are 5 major assumptions that would keep evolution from occurring, aka keep the allele frequencies the same. First, there can be no mutations, because mutations will change the allele frequencies, and that would lead to evolution. Second, there can be no migration, because that will remove or add alleles to the population, changing the frequencies and leading to evolution. Third, populations must be very, very large. Small populations are easily changed by random events, but large populations are more stable and not so easily changed. Fourth, random mating must occur. The trouble is, lots of organisms, including humans, do non-random mating, which means you're choosy about your sexual partners. You don't just mate with every person you see randomly. But by being choosy, you can change the allele frequency. So lastly, no selection can occur. No traits can be favored or disfavored for any reason. Now, obviously, it's nearly impossible to have a population that follows the hardy-weinberg assumptions, which means that populations are changing and evolving on the microevolution scale. When an individual has a genetic trait that gives them an advantage over another organism, it's called an adaptation. The key to adaptations is that the organism is born with it, and they don't have to learn it. It's genetic. Acclimations are also called acquired traits, and they're things that an organism can do to help it survive in the environment. These are not genetic and can be learned. For example, bats have large ears, which help them when they use echolocation. Is this an adaptation or an acclimation? Well, the size of the ears is a genetic factor. A bat would be born with them, so this is an adaptation. Now, bats avoid flying in the rain because it interferes with their echolocation. Is this adaptation or acclimation? Well, since this is behavioral and it's a choice that bats make, it's not genetic. It's an acclimation. Both adaptations and acclimations will help organisms survive and reproduce and play a role in the evolution of a species. Thanks for watching this episode of Teacher's Pet. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter @SciencePet.